Welcome to Nerd Social. I'm John.
And I'm Colin.
In this video, we're going to review and do a spoiler breakdown and discussion of the premiere of Thor: Love and Thunder, written by Taika Waititi and Jennifer Kaylan Robinson, and directed by Taika Waititi. Starting now. All right, so let's get right into it. Colin, so in this movie here, we see Thor returning for Love and Thunder in this fourth installment of a Thor movie. Thor enlists the help of Valkyrie, Korg, and also Jane Foster, his ex-girlfriend, to fight Gore, the God Butcher, who intends to make the gods extinct. What did you think of it?
As I told a lot of people, I think that this movie was definitely a good movie. I say a pretty solid one, but it's definitely we reviewed No Way Home back in December, and we thought like that was definitely top 10. I think John, you probably agreed that No Way Home was probably or at the top 10 of Marvel movies, and so for me, this was kind of like in the middle. We've had now 29 Marvel movies now, and just found out today that the MCU, you have to watch 100 hours of the MCU to basically watch the whole entire thing. It takes 100 hours to do it, not including Disney Plus shows. Yeah. So this is a lot of content, and I think that they just kind of churn out every single one, but definitely enjoyed it, but not some of the definitely not in the top 10. I would say it's probably going to be for me in that 11 to 15 range, 11 to 16 range in terms of Marvel movies. My kind of average one is actually Shang-Chi. Now that might be a little controversial, but that's kind of like my average. But I put Love and Thunder around that, again, like 11 to 16 range in terms of ranking Marvel movies. I think that there is definitely, I think it felt a little short, but at the same time, I felt that there were some parts where I was like, I wanted more, but why is it there is not more? And, it probably affected a lot of the storyline as well, because they had to cut out a number of things. And I don't know why they had to do that for some odd reason. Don't know why, but even though, despite all that, I think it's still pretty solid. I think that based on what the box office has been revealing that it's still pretty fairly good. So yeah, I enjoy it. Go see it, but again, temper your expectations.
Yeah, I felt like it was not as good as I wanted it to be. I mean, Ragnarok, that was a movie where I have to admit I did not like it as much on first viewing, and then after additional viewings, I came to really like it a lot more. And this movie here, I went in with high expectations. Maybe that was the problem. I went in with too high of expectations. I expected to laugh a lot, knowing what the last movie looked like, and I came away a little bit disappointed. The first half was, it had some funny bits here and there, and but I thought it was a lot more misses than hits when it came to some of those jokes. The second half didn't have as many even attempts at humor, and as soon as it was over, again, it's one of those movies where I looked over at my wife and go, "Really? That was it?" I mean,
right.
I was okay. So, in my ranking of Marvel movies, and how many did you say there were? Like 29 of them,
29.
right?
29.
It's in the 20s for me. It's down there. It's down there in the bottom third for me. It's not bad. It's not terrible. And even the terrible, supposedly terrible Marvel movies among the 29, I don't even think it's that bad either. So that just tells you, to me, in my eyes, the quality of the Marvel movies, they're all pretty good, But if these movies still have to get pushed down, and unfortunately, Thor is down there in the mid-20s for me. So it's good. It's not great. It's average, and it's okay. So that's my part of that.
Yeah. One more thing before we get into spoilers,
Sure.
is that I just feel as though it's kind of like Guardians 2 in some ways, because Guardians was just so good.
Yeah.
So good. Like really, really good. Heartwarming, family fun. Guardians 2 is like a little bit of letdown. Still good, but a little bit of a letdown because they kind of hit some of the same beats. You know, I think that Taika kind of tried to hit some of the same beats. Just as an example, the Immigrant Song from Led Zeppelin. Awesome.
Yeah.
Totally awesome. Totally hit the nail on the head in terms of Ragnarok. That's why I enjoy Ragnarok a lot. That's why actually Ragnarok is number 5 on my list.
Yeah.
But Sweet Child of Mine, great song, but doesn't hit as well as Immigrant Song. Doesn't hit just as high. So I think that's kind of how I felt about it, because he's using the same beats and he's using the same tropes, but it just doesn't feel as good because it's not as fresh. Yeah. Even though we know that Taika is very, very creative, very innovative, and all, but I think that he also admitted that there wasn't much of a script, and I think that could have helped a little bit in terms of, you know, bringing a little bit more stability and bringing more meat on the bone, besides just like doing just improv. And improv is all good and all well and good if done right, but then if you're just kind of like doing improv, then there's no continuity with the movie, then it doesn't make any sense for the movie to keep going. You have to have something there so that the actors know what they're doing, and then you're just not kind of like basing it off of vignettes. It's like there's one vignette, like what Justice League did, you know, in the DC universe. Like one vignette, great. This is another great vignette. This is another great vignette. Like, don't do that. There's no consciousness as you go along through the movie, and I felt that, you know, there were scenes that were like that, and we'll get to it in our spoiler talk. Which one of those scenes are kind of like that?
Yeah, the music, I think, while I think is fine, the way they used it in the movie wasn't as impactful as what we heard on Ragnarok or saw on Ragnarok, right?
Yes.
So I agree with you there, because, you know, when they did Sweet Child of Mine in the movie here, I was like, are they already using it in the middle of the movie, right? It didn't seem like it was in the right spot for that, right?
Yeah.
So I agree with you there. All right. So before we move on to spoiler-filled review, a reminder to please, if you like what we're doing, please like and subscribe right up here, and that way we can hopefully get you more content that you enjoy. All right, so without further ado, spoilers ahead.
Oh, no.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Colin, please lead us off. Where would you like to start in talking about spoilers?
I think that we can start off with, it's a very interesting take that they did not start off with any of the main characters. Actually, they did start off with the main character, but they started off with the villain. Mm-hmm. So not even, I don't think even in Infinity War they did that with Thanos. Mm-hmm. Like, did they start off with him?
No. So that cold open was all Gore the God Butcher.
It was all Gore the God Butcher, which was very interesting to kind of see. Just they started with him, and you know, Christian Bale, I think, did a pretty fairly good job in terms of having a very sympathetic character, and as to like kind of bring in that motivation as to why he's doing what he's doing, not just like he's just insane or anything like that. He's a madman. No, it's because of his daughter, and that there was some unsympathetic god that he worshipped that did not see eye to eye with him, and that he's like, what are you good for if you're not going to save my daughter? Yeah. So definitely the motivation was built in that first, and you know, I think the emotional impact of it was not as great. Even though he did very good in terms of emoting, you just didn't feel it in the theater. Maybe because it was just, I don't know. Maybe it's just not as impactful because you don't know who he is yet. You don't know. Mm-hmm. You don't know his background. You just saw that. Oh yeah, his daughter's died, and so there's no like lead into that or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So there's no emotional, even though he was trying very hard to have some type of emotional impact, you don't feel for him. Yeah. But you do feel his motivation as the movie moves along, but not that part. Yeah. So that's kind of how I felt with the cold open of Christian Bale being the villain here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought they could have shown a little bit more. I mean, granted, it was a PG-13 movie, And maybe if they were to show more, maybe it'd have been a little too heavy. It might have turned into a DC movie, I guess. But you know, because of the fact that he is shown to be very devout, very loyal, worship to his gods, and you know, he only quickly alluded to it that his whole planet is pretty much dead, or all his people are dead, including now his daughter, unfortunately. So I didn't mind a cold open as much. It quickly set the stage, and that was it. And you're right. I mean, goodness, Christian Bale's awesome in almost everything he does, right? And so quickly, just fast forwarding, I wanted to see more of him, right? But we'll get to that later. But it goes right into where we last left off on Endgame, where Thor ran off with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and he named it as Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yep.
And
I love that scene. That scene's so awesome.
No, it's
I
great.
love it so much.
The way they just play off each other, right?
Yeah, that's one of my all-time favorite scenes. It's like the great carryover from Infinity War with the "Are you mocking me?" to like now it's like I'm the one who's in charge. No, I'm the one who's.
Yeah.
It's just so good. It's just that's like all-time favorite, like him being like as Guardians of the Galaxy, and like you see Quill being so insecure about his role of leadership. It's just so.
So that dynamic was a great tease, right?
Yes, it was.
And that's what I was expecting going into this movie. So it started off kind of that way, and I thought, oh, okay, this is a great opening. It shows Thor pretty much hilariously in a montage where he just pretty much steals the show, does everything all by himself. He's so super powered or overpowered to the point where he needs no help from anybody else, right? And they made it a whole a funny scene out of that whole thing. And then quickly, I guess they decided to move the story along to establish that they now need to be separated, right? Yeah. So as quickly as that scene went by, that was it. That's it for Guardians of the Galaxy. No more.
I mean, again, this is very similar to, you know, with the beat, when I talked about the non-spoiler part about the beats, similar beats that Taika was putting. Yeah. This is very similar to Doctor Strange. But it's not as well as executed as the one with Doctor Strange. Yeah. You know, the one with Doctor Strange was brilliant. That was really, really good. Yeah. That was like laugh out loud. Like, I've been falling for 20 minutes. Like 30 minutes I've been falling. It's like, that's laugh out loud. But like, there's nothing there that was laugh out loud. And the one scene that was kind of laugh out loud, they already showed it in the trailer, where he was like staring at him, you know, staring in the eyes at him, at Quill, like, you know. But they already used that, and I'm like, but that was the only one that's like really good. And but besides that, they were just so underutilized. Like, I don't even think Nebula said anything. You know, Draxton I don't think he said anything either. I think
barely.
And Rocket barely said something.
Yeah,
you know?
I think they said something, but I honestly I can't remember. It was very quick, and again, I expected more out of them, but that was it. That was to me a totally wasted cameo, right? And,
I agree.
And here's the thing: I think I'm going to be saying this theme over and over again. There were a lot of wasted cameos in this movie, and I think that also led to some of my disappointment as well, because these guys, as you said, that interaction, that dynamic that they had with each other at the end of Endgame, I wanted to see more of that. So why not some adventures with these guys, right? They're hilarious together.
I mean, they kind of did some adventures there, like that one adventure where he broke that religious spire, you know, at the beginning. But that was so brief, and it's just like, it didn't really make sense for them. They could have done like a montage of like hilarious adventures that they went through, like a montage of it, like them doing like some giant squid character or some whatever weird things in the universe. Yeah. I think they could have had a montage of that while Korg was probably narrating at that time. He could have narrated that montage, and then they could have said so many funny scenes. But maybe they did. Maybe he did do that, but they cut it, and that's why I feel as though they left a lot on the cutting room floor that I don't think they should have. They should have just had that whole montage of like, these are the Asgardians of the galaxy, and they're all out there saving people and stuff like that. But then it didn't make any sense for them to separate because, there's so many distress calls and distress signals, so we have to separate. yeah, that makes kind of sort of
Yeah.
sense, but at the same time, they could have just gave some context, and I think that would not. I mean, yes, that would have made the movie longer, but I think it would be much funnier to kind of like, this is where we left off with these
Yeah.
guys, and this is what we should
Yeah.
do. So, anyways, yeah,
Yeah. So that
yeah,
that was my disappointment number one, was the Guardians of the
mm-hmm.
Galaxy just barely making a scene, and then they're out of there already.
Yeah,
So it's quickly moves on to Thor needs to get back to New Asgard on Earth, because
mm-hmm.
he is alerted of a possible threat there. And as he gets there,
Yep.
that's where a battle ensues. Gore is attacking the village, and Valkyrie is there. We see Valkyrie returns there as King Valkyrie. I liked her montage there as well, so that was pretty
Mm-hmm.
funny. And then, of course, who shows up on the scene is Jane Foster as Mighty Thor. What did you think of her appearance?
Yeah. I think that it made sense within the context of the story. I think that what actually transpired with Korg and Thor was that they went to a planet and they saw that there was a god that was already executed. We see Sif come back. You know, Sif. The last time we saw her was Loki in that like kind of like playback again and again with Sith hitting Loki in the family jewels, let's just say. So that was the recurring theme that was happening. So that was the last we saw her again. And so Sif was warning. Sif also made a very brief appearance. That was like the only thing that we saw.
Another
Sif.
brief cameo. Very brief
cameo.
Why does she even come back in the movie?
So, so that she was warning. That's what led to Thor and Korg going back to New Asgard. To see King Valkyrie there of a looming threat from Gore the God Butcher, and his plan to kind of take the children from the village. So so that was kind of like the context. I think that they introduced Jane. We saw again some other brief appearances from Selvig was there. We saw Darcy
another
briefly,
very brief cameo.
Another brief cameo from Darcy. So it's like nothing mentioned of WandaVision, nothing whatsoever, which is like, then why are you there? If you're not going to mention WandaVision, you're not even going to mention what happened. Like, just in passing, you should mention, oh, I had a very eventful, was months ago. I had some eventful, or years ago. Based on the timeline, this is, I think, 2026 or something like that. But I had some eventful thing that happened to me a few years ago with Wanda and stuff like. Mention that. I mean, why not? Why not?
I don't even remember a line she uttered. I really don't.
No, I think that she just kind of pined for Thor, and it's like, that's kind of established from the first two movies that you're kind of have a secret crush on him, but at the same time, last time we saw you was in WandaVision. Like, come on, there's some continuity issue there. But again, of course, I think that they were bringing the Mighty Thor storyline of her having cancer. So they did lean in on that. They did lean in on. I think that I don't mind her being back. I think that it's very strange with Natalie Portman, because she has been a very iconic actor in terms of all these franchises, and also kind of lowbrow comedy, like Your Highness or No Strings Attached, lowbrow comedy, and then she's also very serious. These very serious roles. She played Jackie Kennedy, and she was an Oscar winner as well in Black Swan. So it's like, the dramatic Natalie Portman is what made her famous. But then she always does these kind of off the cuff type of things, and it's always seems so awkward with her.
You know what? I absolutely agree with you.
it's like she doesn't really belong there.
She
because
doesn't.
You see her as
it's not natural.
She's like old school Hollywood, like Audrey Hepburn type. It's like Audrey Hepburn going into a comic book movie. It's like, it's not. It feels out of place, even though it's great that she does it, and she does it with humor and with grace. But at the same time, it's like, you don't kind of belong here.
No, so do you remember that scene when they first arrived to Omnipotent City, right? And she starts talking about having a catchphrase, that whole delivery of how she did it, I found it really awkward because it's like she was forcing it to be funny, right? I didn't think it was her best acting in that scene at all, because I didn't think she convinced me at all to go into that moment of, oh yeah, she's really thinking about catchphrases here. It just really looked so forced, like they insert joke here, and she tried to deliver it, and it just didn't work very well there.
Yeah, and I think that part of it is that she, you know, when she was first cast, I think that there was some chemistry. I mean, I saw the first one movie. I loved it because it was just like there's some nice chemistry between the two. Yeah. But I think that it just got, you know, when the second movie came out, it just she didn't like it. You know, behind the scenes, she said that she didn't like it. She wanted Patty Jenkins to be director. You know,
that's right.
And so she had a falling out, you know, with Marvel and things like that. Yeah. And then they kind of convinced her to come back because she's just, I don't know, she's raising her family.
Yeah.
You know, and so I don't know, as though I like her a lot. I like her being back, but at the same time, she feels a little bit out of place for some odd reason. And it's like, do you really needed her in some ways? But at the same time, you know, because she's such a well-known actress and she's just so again, she just like has so much class. Like you can't refuse her, right? You really can't refuse her to ask her to come back. Graciously says yes. You can't just be like, oh, we made a mistake, you know.
Well, I want to take us back to Korg. If you recall, he was telling a story to try to set everything up. So that story of just how we got here so far, just to catch everybody up.
Yeah.
And the thing that stuck out for me in that, yes, Taika is just trying to be very funny, playing his himself basically as Korg, telling that story.
Pretty much.
In doing so, I thought he did a huge disservice to the Warriors 3 yet again. What is it? What is it about the Warriors 3 they hate so much? So in Ragnarok, they dispensed with them, like they kill them off one by one with barely any 1 minute screen time at all for any of them, right? And then in this movie, how did he reference them? He goes, "Oh, this guy, and what's his name? To the Asian guy, what's his name? Are you kidding me?" I was like so pissed off. Going, what did these guys do to Kevin Feige and Taika to have warrant this much disrespect, right? I mean,
that was kind of it didn't. I don't know. I just think that they were synonymous with the fact that they know that Thor: The Dark World was their worst movie, or one of the worst movies that they had. So it's like we just have to wipe the slate clean a little bit, and it's like oh, that never happened. Even though it's funny that they try to bring it back in Endgame, they try to bring it back anyway. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, so you're gonna bring it back anyway to like kind of like say to kind of like wash yourself of that. They're like, maybe I just did, but we didn't like the Warriors 3 anyway. But they were fine. I mean, they were okay in Thor 1. I
liked them in Thor 1. I thought they could have been those characters that keep coming back to just kind of help him, you know, but instead they're done, right? And we were reminded how done they were with these guys. So and same with Sif, right? Just write her out. You bring her back for a tiny little cameo, and that's about it. So the story moves along to where Gore, with his big plan, he gets to set in motion. He kidnaps all the children of Asgard, New Asgard. Now, once he did the kidnapping of the kids, I have to admit, I started rolling my eyes when that happened, because it to me it just turned into a Disney movie at that point, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, the big bad villain took the kids, right? And we have to go save the children. I had quick thoughts of, Temple of Doom. We got to go save the kids and all that stuff.
Yep,
so,
exactly.
So I'm like, what the hell? So let's see.
Captain Hook.
Let's see where this plot goes, right? Yeah, right.
Captain Hook. Yeah.
So off to save the children.
Very Disney.
But to save the children, they have to go recruit other gods to fight alongside them, because Gore is killing all the gods. Now, that's another criticism I have is, why didn't they show? They only showed one scene of Gore in the beginning, that cold open, killing that god, right? Could they have shown him, like, in a quick montage, like, showing how much of a threat he really is to all of these other gods? And I didn't feel like they really established that, right? So I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
what did you think of
they
that?
kind of, they kind of took a shortcut by like showing dead bodies of gods, basically, and like he wasn't like it didn't mean anything, it didn't
Yeah.
mean anything, and I think that they, it just didn't mean much, and I think you're right, is that they really did not, they underutilized him a lot, and for the expense of having some cheap laughs at in Omnipotent City. It's like some cheap laughs here and there, and I think that people are not very happy. Like that I've heard online, they're not very happy with Russell Crowe's performance. And I thought it was kind of like very. I mean, it's kind of off. For me, I think that okay, the accent. Well, I think one other people online said that it felt like House of Gucci level, where it's like the accent.
They didn't like his Greek accent.
Played out. So it's like, I mean, I think that they wanted. I think that it's fine in terms of the humor part. I think that you have to see them that are kind of above everybody and doesn't give a care in the world, that type of thing. I think that's pretty okay. But yeah, I think they could have. I think that again, he's doing the same beats again with not just with this. You could think of Zeus as like the Grandmaster.
Yeah.
I mean, but just a poor version of the Grandmaster because he's not. But Russell Crowe is not Jeff Goldblum. Nobody's Jeff Goldblum. So again, it's just like a knockoff version of that of what the quirky weirdo type of thing, and he's trying to play that off as though we're gonna make Zeus quirky and weird and like and like orgies, basically that's basically what it is. Kind of like the Grandmaster. He is weirdo, quirky, and likes orgies. Same thing.
You're right. What I didn't understand was, okay, so you're going to go with the children plot, which makes it seem more like a Disney Channel show. And then in the next scene, you're talking about orgies, right? Who's the audience directed to, right? Or which audience is this really for? So that's where I think where there's some people talking about either pacing issues or tone issues as well when it comes to that. And that part just didn't fit. I did like the whole idea of Omnipotent City. I don't remember that from the comics. I think that does exist if I'm not mistaken. And the whole idea of Zeus being there. Now, here's another complaint I have from a nerdy side of things, and that is, so they're established that these Greek gods actually exist. They're mythological, real Greek gods, mixed with space Vikings of Asgardian gods that are really Norse gods, if you really think about it. So these are Greek space gods, or is it myth gods mixed with space Vikings that are acting as gods, right? So it's like, to me, the whole mythology in the Marvel universe, it's a little muddied, and it's not very clear on which mythology they're really trying to go with. If they want to go for both, I guess that's what they're expecting us to believe, or just take it, just absorb it, just shut up and watch it. And well, for me, I'm just trying to fit it all in. It's like, you guys established there's space realms, not other dimension realms that these gods are coming from, especially for Asgard. And now we have Greek gods, right? So I never, even in the comics, I never understood that, by the way. I never thought that really fit. And by the way, it's not just Marvel either. In DC Comics, it's like that as well. So they're mixing the Greek gods and the mythological gods of all the different types of cultures that these gods exist, plus superheroes. And to hear Zeus talk about superheroes, in his voice, I thought was hilarious. But at the same time, it's messy. It's definitely causes more of a mess, right?
Yeah, it is messy, and I think that's some of the things that they need to really streamline. And I think that this is some of the complaints of Phase 4 is that you're all over the place in some ways. You're establishing dimensions. Yep. You're watching Doctor Strange. You're establishing dimensions, then multiverse,
and timelines.
Timelines, and then in Ms. Marvel, if you've seen Ms. Marvel, they're talking about another type of dimension and stuff like that. So it's like, so there's a lot of things that are there that are these separate worlds that are broken pieces. And if you even put into Disney Plus shows, Madripoor, like Madripoor is just supposedly magical place, like much about Madripoor except for Falcon.
Cyberpunk City.
Yeah, like exactly, Cyberpunk City. So it's like, so I think that they have to kind of streamline these type of different places where it leads to some type of event, and I hope that they do. And also Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi has like, what is that? Another dimension, or is that another?
That's right. It's a portal to another whatever, right?
Yeah,
spiritual world.
And then if you incorporate Marvel, Netflix, how is that different from Kunlun?
Correct.
I don't know.
Correct.
I have no idea.
I thought it would be Kunlun, right?
Yeah. Now it would have been easier if they just said Kunlun. They don't want to do that. So I just feel as though they need to streamline a lot of these different type of locations,
Agreed.
World building, so that it's more consistent in terms of the storytelling, and it will bring people back to say these are not just like places that are like in the ether somewhere. It's not just like some random place or random dimension that is just serving the story. It's actually serving a bigger story that's going to be out there. And I think that's the frustration that a lot of people have with Phase 4 right now. It's like they really need to come up with some type of main event where it's like everything kind of comes together. And I just hope that he's able to do that because it's like it doesn't look very good, and people are kind of rumbling, even though the quality of the universe is still pretty good. It's still fairly good. Yeah. There are cracks. I have to admit that there are cracks in the Marvel universe, and they need to kind of put themselves together a little bit to kind of piece it all together so that it makes sense to people. And I know that people don't think that people would say, oh, well, Phase 1 was not pieced together, but we kind of knew that they're going to have the Avengers. We kind of knew that back in our minds. But this does not seem as though what is their end game for Phase 4 or Phase 5? What is their end game?
Yeah,
we don't know.
They got to reveal it soon.
That
they have to.
They need to reveal it in order for the fans to stay engaged, because they're going to lose fans. They're going to lose engagement if people are going to not watch. They're going to lose money. Yeah. Disney Plus is not going to make money. So it's not just the movies. It's this whole, and people say, oh, Marvel is too big to fail. It's like, no, it's not.
It can still fail, especially if you have back-to-back mediocre movies, right, coming out.
Yes.
And, I mean, Marvel kind of established this. These aren't just movies. These are like Marvel episodes being released each single time. So if you're going to release episodes, even if they're connected somehow in the same universe, you got to show that cohesion. You got to show how it's connected, and people are now expecting it. And when you are not delivering on something they kind of expect, there's going to be disappointment. And I feel it. I have it. I absolutely have it.
Yeah, and one other point is that we knew at the end of Avengers that it's going to lead to Thanos.
Yes.
Like, even though there were separate stories, all these separate stories, we knew that it was going to lead to Thanos eventually. Yeah. Thanos was the end game, for that whole Infinity Saga. We know that, but we don't know what this is. Yeah. We have no idea. We're just spitballing. Galactus, Doctor Doom, Kang the Conqueror. We don't know. So it's like he has to do something to say, this is the big bad. It's all going to lead to this person or this villain.
Speaking of Galactus, I thought Eternity was Galactus in this when they showed the silhouette. If you remember the silhouette towards. Anyways, I'm jumping around.
Yeah.
I did want to.
Oh, that's okay.
I did want to point out there were two recurring themes or recurring laughs that they just kept going back to the well for. One was the fact that Stormbreaker, his axe, was acting like the jealous girlfriend, right? So so they kept going back, and I have to admit that was pretty funny, right? Creepy funny,
that was very funny.
At the same time. So it was definitely played for laughs over and over. And then those goats, right? The goats screaming, I found to be annoying as hell. I didn't laugh a single time from the beginning of the movie to how many times did they do it? Like at least 5, 6 times. The only time I laughed is when they hit that asteroid or planet or whatever. That was the only part that was funny, but all the rest were just like, oh, so grating and annoying as hell.
I actually love the screaming goats. I actually love them. I don't know why. It's just like they freaked out, and I love them.
So it worked for you.
Yeah, it worked. It did work for me. I think that the Mjolnir scene where they all went into pieces, come back.
Yeah.
That was actually a very good action.
Yes.
I actually like that a lot. That was really, really good. And that was a really creative way of using Mjolnir. But yeah, the jealous type, that was really funny where Stormbreaker was coming like,
out of the sea, coming right in.
How you doing? Yeah, I was thinking about you.
Yeah.
It's like that was really good. I like those two scenes actually. So that actually, I think that maybe because I'm very easy when it comes to laughs. I laugh very easily when it comes to those very creative, jokey type of things. But yeah, I think you're right. It's just that there's a lot of kind of inconsistencies, and I know that we're kind of jumping around. I think we left off at where, and also the fact about like he didn't really do a good job of explaining. I mean, explain the how Jane got cancer. They just kind of like, yeah, this is from the mighty Thor, so we're just gonna put it in there. It's like there's no explanation as to how she got that.
Yeah, but when she revealed it,
work-related stress, like work-related stress and genetics. Yes, genetics and work-related stress contributed to it, and it's like, but there's a progression on that. It's not just like you get stage 4 like that. You know, it doesn't happen that way. There's like yeah.
Yeah, and when she did it too, when they revealed it, it hit like a ton of bricks, and I thought from there, I have to admit, and I'm sure a lot of people felt it too, it really killed, because it's super serious. At the same time, it kind of killed the vibe a little bit. Because there was a lot. It was a very heartfelt moment, supposed to be played for also laughs at the same time, and then she goes, "I have cancer," and just out of nowhere, and that right there, just I thought kind of whatever high that people were all expecting and almost feeling just went crashing for the rest of the way. That's why I can barely remember any jokes the rest of the way, I think, because it was at that point on. Seriously, I barely remember any jokes or any funny things after that. There's Korg just mentioning a couple things about that Dwayne The Rock reference, right? I thought that was hilarious, but that was it. That's the only thing I remember in the second half that being anywhere close to being funny.
Yeah, it got really serious really quick, and I think that they just they kind of sidelined Valkyrie a little bit, and toward the end it was just basically Mighty Thor and Thor. So it just kind of, I don't know. I mean, I just felt that there's definitely a lot of inconsistencies and a lot of things. There's like, yeah, I wish they didn't do that, and I wish that they did this more, that more, and even going like I think that it was very creative to go to Shadow Realm where they did black and white. I think that was very creative.
Cool. Yeah,
that was definitely very cool. So again, there's some good stuff. You know, it's very Snyder-esque actually. So I was like, that actually was pretty cool. Because it reminded me of the Zack Snyder type of stuff. But again, it's just I think they were trying to do. I think he was trying to do too much, and I think that if they just kind of did a gore story, just focus on gore, or they just did a Jane Foster. They did the Jane Foster story in the next movie. Yeah. I think it could have been a little better, but they kind of jammed everything in one movie, and it's like you kind of wasted that in some ways because you didn't give service to either story. You know.
So you touched upon two things that I thought would have drastically improved the movie, or at least got a better movie than what we got. One, more gore, right? It definitely needed more gore to God Butcher. Two, if you're going to have Jane Foster in this movie, just make it a Jane Foster movie, right? It's almost like, to me, that they could have done a whole Mighty Thor movie with Gore to God Butcher and have Thor, Chris Hemsworth Thor, as the side character. Now, I know that's not really how they were trying to go about all this thing, but honestly, this was Jane's story. Look, it was Jane's story when she showed up. It was Jane's story on the way there, trying to recruit other gods. And it's certainly Jane's story at the end, clearly, right? And especially her redemption moment or her hero moment It was Jane, right? And
Yeah.
so I thought it should have just been a Mighty Thor movie with that, with more God the Butcher showing what he could do. And you also mentioned the action before with Mjolnir going to pieces and all that. I thought all the action was fantastic in this movie. The action was great. The only complaint I had was the about action were the kids again. You know, when we got to the final battle and all the kids are all of a sudden deputized basically by Thor and his lightning. Yeah. And they again, more Disney Channel movie. It turned into a Disney Channel show / movie when they got involved, and especially when that one kid took a doll or the bunny doll and did the laser. I was like, oh, that's laser, the boys. Yeah. They got that from the boys, right? And, so like if I hadn't seen the boys, then I would have seen that scene and go, oh, that was pretty cool. But I just felt like it was derivative, you know, just they took a little bit from that. So that was the only action I didn't really enjoy. Was it was a cool kid moment. But again, you go kidnapping of the kids, Zeus talking about orgies, and then kids to the rescue at the end. They turn into basically an army for Thor, right?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, they did.
Yeah, but ultimately, again, I thought it should have been a Jane Foster movie with gore. Especially in the way we finished.
Yeah, but I think that would have been a little problematic because I think I would have loved to see that, but at the same time, you know how fans are, you know how they are, that small contingent that's out there that would be like, you're taking away our heroes. It's like, no one.
Then give her a show, and then they can poo-poo the show like they've been doing all the other shows, right?
So I mean, there definitely are things that are, like I said, there are great. There are vignettes that are great, and who knew that Heimdall had a son? It's like that's kind of.
Why did he have time for that? Wasn't he guarding the Bifrost all that time?
kind of random that type of thing where that happens, and then the introduction of eternity to it, and whether. And this is where it again could have tied it a little better if you were talking about eternity. Then you could talk about, and they were actually celestials there. Yeah. So we saw celestials that were in that realm of eternity's realm there, and it was pretty cool to see that. But no reference to that, no reference to Eternals whatsoever. Nothing like that. So it's just again those type of things. It's not connected, and like, where's the connection there? Yeah. No connection whatsoever. Even though you show Easter eggs of celestials, so what? It's not good enough anymore. It's not good enough for us anymore. So I think that the scene at the end with eternity was very touching. It's definitely a touching moment again, but you don't feel for him because you feel for him because of the fact that he was able to wish his daughter back, and also, Thor made the choice that, hey, you do whatever you want. Yeah. You want to kill me, and that was good. That was
hero moment. Yep.
Yeah, hero moment, and all the scenes were touching, but there's no emotional impact because you didn't give enough screen time to Gore.
It wasn't earned.
Yeah, it wasn't earned exactly.
No. Yeah.
Earned at all. So you don't feel for him that he died. You kind of felt a little bit for Jane because, she had cancer. Yeah. But that's kind of still forced in some ways because it's like she just had cancer right now.
Correct.
Now, if it was like had cancer in previous stories and that she developed cancer.
That's what I mean. If she had her own show.
From the ether. Or you can say that from the ether Infinity Stone. Okay, that that makes sense. Like, she developed cancer because the ether was inside her.
You should be a Marvel writer, Colin.
That makes a lot of sense. They messed up her body so that she continued to work. Ether poisoned her body, but she continued to work, and she developed cancer because of it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, you want to tie it back to Infinity Stones? Great. Okay, that makes a lot of sense because she is from.
That does. That would have been a good explanation for a lot of things, but again, I think if she had her own show to explore all of that and had some time to develop that probably would have made more sense. I know I wanted to see more Mighty Thor. I definitely did. So I think she would have
Yeah.
warranted her own show. Even God the Butcher could have warranted his own show. I mean, heck, we're getting a villain show with Agatha Harkness, so why not Gore the God Butcher, right? So we should definitely get that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that they just need to kind of define themselves a little bit more to see, because the it's getting blurry.
Yeah.
The lines between like Disney Plus and the movies are getting very blurry, and they need to kind of figure out a way to like make these kind of like cinematic events. Like it's not just like you said, episodes. It's like it just felt like this is an episode again, and it's like, what's the difference between this and the 6 episodes that we've been seeing on Disney Plus? Nothing.
Yeah.
There's really not much difference, and so they need to kind of get their stuff together before fans start leaving.
So,
and get disengaged.
So do we feel this way because, I've been reading some articles here and there. Is it really Marvel fatigue setting in? Because it's now 2 straight movies now. We got Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, and now this movie, Love and Thunder, where in both movies you definitely had cameos in there. You had a lot of cool Easter egg moments in there as well, but they just felt empty to me. Like even in Multiverse of Madness, you had all those other heroes from the other universe there. And in probably in any other time, at any other time, if we saw the weird, but like, oh, that's awesome. But but I felt like that was it. What a wasted cameo. Yeah. And now I'm saying that for another movie. What a wasted cameo for several people, right?
I don't think it's Marvel fatigue. I think maybe part of it is, but I think also part of it is that the expectations are much higher.
Okay. Yeah.
The expectations are much higher. We want more
substance.
More Infinity War storytelling, like Endgame style storytelling, or even like Loki style storytelling. Like Loki was brilliant show. Yeah. So we want more of that type of story, like creative, innovative, fresh storytelling. And I think that part of it is that maybe visual effects, are overworked. They're not getting that point across. But also, I think that some of the stories are just they're still very entertaining, but they're using old like for this one again. Like I said, they're using the old tropes again. He did the cameo scene again. Recapping what Thor Ragnarok, and then he was able to bring in Sam Neill, who comes to Earth, Matt Damon, and Melissa McCarthy. So great. I mean, but great that they showed up. Great that they were there. But it was not as good as the first one.
No.
The first time.
Because you've seen it before. Good. That's why.
Yeah. Seen it before. It's not as good as the first time. The first time I laughed out loud that Matt Damon was there. It was like, and Sam Neill was there. It was like, who the? Why? What? What's going on? It's like, but he did the same thing. It's like, no, it doesn't work the second time.
Yeah. It's not as fresh.
It's not as funny. Yeah, it's not as fresh, not as funny. So that's the frustration I have with this movie, is that you're and this is what directors do and writers do sometimes, is that they just go to the same well, like you said earlier, they go to the same well again.
A formula.
Like, making sure that that lightning strikes twice in the same place. It doesn't. You need to kind of reinvent yourself and redo. Yes, you can bring in some old, like some formulaic stuff from last time, play for laughs, sure, but you need to keep being creative and being innovative. That's what keep people from coming into this world. So so I think that's where the fatigue might set in.
Yeah, I think when Ragnarok came out, it was a huge departure from Thor: The Dark World. So, and it was a very pleasant departure, pleasant surprise for a lot of people. It didn't affect me that way at first. I went the other direction, and eventually I came around to it. But in this one, they were expecting Ragnarok. I know I was, and I didn't get it. I didn't get it because it wasn't as good, and at the same time, it wasn't as fresh. So part of it is probably unmet expectations as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So we did get 2 stinger scenes. One is in the credits. So the first scene we got was a reveal that Zeus, who we thought was dead. Turns out he's actually alive, right? And he's alive, and he decides he's going to go after Thor. And who's he going to sick on
Mm-hmm.
Thor is a big reveal of Hercules. Hercules, the Marvel
Yes,
version of
Hercules.
played by Brett Goldstein. And now it came really quick, and I want to take a look at him to see if his whole body was CGI'd, because I don't remember Brett Goldstein that big. I don't remember him that big on Ted Lasso. He's just a skinny soccer player there on Ted Lasso. So I wanted to take a look. I thought it was some definitely unconventional casting choice there. And in the brief moment that I saw him, he looked like comic book Hercules to me.
Yeah.
He looked like Marvel Hercules. So I do want to see more of that. But again, at the same time, I was never a big fan of Hercules in the comics. I just never followed that.
Yeah.
I don't see him as a superhero. But
Yeah.
me.
I played the Marvel game. There was like one of the Marvel games that was online, and so remember if it was Strike Force or anything like that. So that's how I got introduced to Hercules. I was like, Hercules is actually a Marvel character. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That was really fascinating to me. And you know, I think it's kind of going to be like bro versus bro type of thing. You know, if they're gonna introduce each character. So instead of Batman v Superman, it's going to be like bro versus bro.
And then clearly they're going to team up later, right? So
yeah, of course,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, I mean, I didn't have any problems with it. I think again, it just kind of played. I think Zeus just played like the Grandmaster. I mean, he was the perfect foil. You know, that kind of gray area type of individual, very weird. You know, very weird type of guy. So yeah, so you know, kind of not very surprised that he was still alive on there. So yeah, it was a good reveal. And then in the second post-credit scene, it was we see Jane actually going to Valhalla. So Valhalla is the heaven of Asgard. So we get to see Heimdall again, which is really fascinating because I thought that he was sick and tired of Marvel, and he shipped to DC. Now he's back in Marvel. I don't know why.
Yeah.
You know. I have no idea. Maybe the media blows it out of proportion, but like both Natalie Portman and Idris Elba said that they were done.
They were. They said that. You're right.
So, I don't get that. Like, why is Idris Elba keeps coming back?
You know, they paid them like crazy to come. Hey, we'll give you another couple zeros to that salary. Just come on back and make a fool out of yourself. Oh, I tell you what, we will give you a 15-second scene. How's that? How about 9 figures for 16 seconds, you know? So I can kind of see that. But at the same time, they all know that that's where they get the most exposure. And they know that right now, Marvel is king. I mean, absolute king when it comes to box office mastery.
Yeah.
They just own the box office right now, even with mediocre movies, right?
Right, they do.
Yeah.
I mean, they do. I mean, the cameos that have been appearing, you know, and we have Patton Oswalt, and you had Harry Styles, we had Charlize Theron.
All of them,
like,
right? I mean,
like,
they can't wait to be in a Marvel
Charlize?
movie.
Yeah.
And they'll even do it for free, maybe, right? So the quick thing about Valhalla is, as we talked about earlier, you got dimensions, you got timelines, you got quantum realm, different realms, space. So what is Valhalla? Is that really a spiritual section? Is it another realm? Does that mean we actually get to revisit it? And does that also mean people don't really die? Right?
Yeah.
They just never really die.
Yeah.
You can go find them.
These things need to be kind of like explained because there's so many different places, and you just don't know. But for example, Star Wars. Star Wars, at least you know kind of like where the planets are. Like people they kind of give that nugget out there. Okay, this is what it is. This is what it's all about. But with all these different places, it doesn't make any sense. Like as to like the context of whether or not it's a dimension, whether or not it's a multiverse, whether or not it's in space.
Yeah.
You know, even when we went to Infinity War, Nevid the leader, okay, where he forged the Stormbreaker.
Yes.
Like, is that space? Is that a made-up place? We don't know. We have no idea. Vormir, we don't know if it's that. You know, so it's like, they've had this kind of issue where they don't define like what are these places, what are the context of these places, and what are they about. They define it based upon the fact that they are comics. They're their places in the comics, but
Yeah.
in the larger MCU, what are they? Like, what is it all about? Like, I just wish that they, if not Marvel does it, if not Disney does it, that some fan, some super fan out there is able to do something like that and define it. And then they'll be like, because that's what they did with Star Wars, with the planets, with the different planets that they visit. You know, you're able to see where, in terms of proximity, where things are. You know, where's this, where's that? What does this have to do with this, and what does that have to do with this? So they need to do that. You know, that's how you build mythology. That's how you build fan bases. Is that you got to give them that context so that they can discover it for themselves. And again, that's where the creative juices flow for a lot of people, and they can create their own stories and, you know, play with their action figures, you know, with that type of context. And maybe those individuals can write movies someday, you know, for Marvel. You know, and that happens. I mean, yeah.
So the movie, I know we got right to the stingers, but the movie ends with Thor basically having an adopted daughter now. That's Gore's daughter. Yep. Gore's daughter lives, after all, because, what is it? Gore wished for, through eternity, to give, and basically, so did she absorb or take in Eternity's powers? Is that what happened?
That is probably that's been a theory that's been floated out there by the internet. So I have some speculation that yes, that is probably the case.
So if that's the case, that's a hell of a lot of power to put in a very little girl, especially when they showed a brief glimpse of her eyes going psh, just you know, putting a hole through a frying pan, right? So I don't know where. First of all, I did not expect Thor to end up with a daughter at the end. Right? I did not expect that at all. They alluded to like maybe one line in this movie where he possibly wanted kids of some sort, right? Just one line, one throwaway line, and then all of a sudden in the end, it's like, what the hell? He's got a kid now, right? And by the way, in real life, I think that's his real daughter.
That's his real daughter. Yes, that's
and from what I read, he had among the other kids too. He also had not only his other kids in there, but who else has had other kids? What was it? Bale. Bale also had a kid in there, and Natalie Portman also had a kid in there. So you have a kid. Everybody bring their kids in this movie.
Well, I mean now the Marvel characters are getting older, so like older, you know.
So they're gonna take over.
You know, so they have to they have to be like, you know, dads basically. I mean, if you think about it, Doctor Strange is pretty much like a surrogate dad, you know, to Peter Parker, you know, No Way Home.
Yeah.
And also to America Chavez, you know, in Multiverse of Madness, you know. So he played surrogate dad twice, you know, already. So
yeah, so that seems to be a recurring theme. And obviously we have our theories as to where it's all headed. Each of these new Marvel movies in Phase 4 happen to be introducing some kid in some way, right?
Yes.
The shows in this phase happen to be introducing some younger kid or younger version or younger hero into this universe. And we all believe that it's leading to, that might, if anything, that's the one thing I can think of that connects them all, or most of them, not all of them, but most of them, is that it's probably headed to some sort of Young Avengers type of culmination or team up. So
well, it could be that some of the older folks are sidelined in some way. Yeah, they're sidelined, some type of multiverse where they get sidelined. So it's up to the kids to figure it out.
Correct. They have to go rescue them. them. Yeah, they're the ones. They'll be deputized by Thor, and they'll go after.
I mean, it makes sense because Kang the Conqueror, you know, I mean, he's a time traveler.
Yes.
So if Kang the Conqueror is the big bad, and that he wipes out like existence or whatever, one of the versions of Kang wipes out existence because they have the power. He has the power to do that.
Yeah.
It could be that it's up to the kids to really figure this out. So any of the kids that show up, you know, that are. But it's strange because you know, do you consider the new Black Widow a kid? I don't think so. I mean, kind of, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, Kate Bishop, yes. You know.
Okay, well maybe that's an exception.
But like Haley Steinfeld and Florence Pugh are like around the similar age. They're like so it doesn't really kind of work, but it's kind of it's weird. It's just weird. And do you consider Peter Parker a kid now? You know, because he's a little more mature now. So
Well,
yeah,
whenever they
yeah.
introduce Miles Morales, he ought to be the kid, right?
Maybe they will
Maybe
introduce
that's
Miles
next. I
Morales.
hope that's next. Actually, I would
Yeah,
definitely watch
yeah,
that. All right.
yeah. So there are again. They need. It's great to speculate. I would love that they do something like that where they explain themselves.
Yeah.
But But I'm only one person. You know, you are only one person. We're just like individuals talking about it on YouTube.
Yeah.
We're not Kevin Feige. We're not part of the Marvel team. So you know, if they, they probably don't have time for any of us, any of us that are out there. But at the same time, I'm just like, get to it. Like, define yourselves already.
Yeah.
It's time. Because people are waiting,
Yeah.
desperately waiting, and they want to say, "Shut up, take my money," but you got to give them a reason to. Still, you can't just do that.
All right. Well, I think we've waxed poetic and on about Thor, Love and Thunder for quite a while now. I think we covered everything.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to hear what you all think, audience. What did you think of the movie? Do you agree with us? Did you enjoy it more, or maybe you enjoyed it less? Definitely let us know. And until next time, thank you all. Good night.
All right.